Hey guys, this is Dean Green again. I'm just checking in to say hi and do the intro for the history team. So you guys are looking at chapter 11, lesson 2. This is where the Romans went from a monarchy to a republic. Have a good day.
All right, guys, so Miss Lewis is back here with your first hot question for today. So the question says, explain how the founding fathers of the United States are similar to the Roman nobles who overthrew their king. So in the top picture, you are going to see the founding fathers of the United States. Now, based on everything that you've learned, not necessarily in world history, but prior knowledge that you have, how are the people, or the men specifically, who founded our country and the government and the rules of our country, how are those people similar to these Roman nobles who overthrew their king? So this is a serious higher order thinking question because you are using knowledge outside of what you've learned in world history. So go ahead and try to answer the best that you can. Remember, these hot questions are required. You will lose points if you're not answering them. So go ahead and take the time, pause the video, answer your hot question, and then we'll move on.
So once a monarchy, the Romans created a republic. If you remember, a monarchy is a government ruled by a king. What you need to do in the box next to it is draw a picture to represent that vocabulary word. What is a picture that reminds you of a monarchy? Republic, a government in which elected leaders make decisions for the citizens. What is a picture that would help represent a government in which elected leaders make decisions for the citizens? The purpose of the Roman Republic was to keep any one person from becoming too powerful in the government. But Rome was not a democracy. Most of the elected officials were wealthy and powerful.
All right, guys, so shortly after the Romans created the Republic, they found themselves at war. Okay, so they had outside attacks and several years of bad harvests. So, you know, they had land that looked like this. It was super dry. They couldn't grow anything. And after these attacks and bad harvests, it left them with instability and famine. Famine meaning a lack of food. Now, because of both of those things, Rome ended up appointing or putting people in power for short terms, and these leaders were known as dictators. Now, Mrs. Hodges is going to talk to you more about a dictator, but one of the most, I would say, known dictators from Rome would be Cincinnatus, and Ms. Hodges is going to go into all those details, so stay tuned.
All right, so we're going to talk about a dictator, another form of a leader in a government, and a dictator is a short-term leader with almost absolute power. And in the Roman world, they're going to be called in to settle a dispute or settle some issue that Rome is having, but they're not meant to last forever, and they're not meant to be a permanent leader. It's a short term. So stop the video and draw a picture to represent the vocabulary word in the box right here. All right, so welcome back. So now that you've got your picture drawn, let's talk about the most famous dictator in the Roman world. And Cincinnatus is one of their favorite heroes, and one that they have that they look back to as one of their heroes that they want to emulate, and which means to copy and be like. So here's a little biography of Cincinnatus down here, and you may notice that it sounds like Cincinnati, which is where we get that name from for a city in the United States. So Cincinnatus is one of the most famous dictators from the early Roman Republic because he wasn't eager to hold on to his power. Now, he was a general, and he did fight in some wars, and he had been a great leader for Rome. But when the war was over, he just wanted to be a farmer, and he'd gone back to being a farmer. However, when they needed him and they called him up, they admired his abilities and his loyalty, and they called him to come in and serve, and he did. And he squashed a rebellion in a short amount of time. It took him less than 2 months, and then he took care of the issue that was going on, and then he just dropped all his power and went straight back to his farm. And the Romans didn't want dictators to stay there, so they had a rule that you could only be a dictator for up to 6 months. That's as long as you could stay. And Cincinnatus wanted to get the job done and get out of there as quickly as possible. So in terms of dictator, don't think of a harsh dictator like we have in our mind, but think of this short-term leader with almost absolute power, and he can only stay for 6 months.
Now we're going to answer the second question in lesson 2, and this is actually going to be your next hot question. So right above it, write hot question, because if it's not answered, you will lose the 20 points. Do you agree with the Romans that Cincinnatus was an ideal leader? Defend your position using evidence from the biography and your knowledge of social studies. Good luck.
All right, so our early Republic of Rome is going to have a few challenges. We have our two classes of people. We have the patricians and the plebeians, and the patricians being the wealthy nobles, and the plebeians being those that are the poor at the bottom. So our patricians were wealthy. There were several of them. There were a small minority of the population, so there's not as many of the patricians as there are plebeians. There's more plebeians. Once they controlled all aspects of government in the beginning, and after 218, they were given some restrictions on their ability to trade. Now the plebeians, they were the common people. There were a lot of plebeians. They were the craftsmen and the peasants, traders and workers. They were a majority of the population, and they're going to have a revolt, and they're going to gain the right to participate in their government. And only Romans could be traders, so many of them became wealthy. So they were the only Romans who could trade. So after 218, the patricians weren't allowed to participate in trade. Only plebeians could, which led to make some of them really wealthy, and they wanted more say in their government. So there's some challenges to the early republic about who is going to have the money and where it's going to come from, and who's going to have the power. And as the plebeians gained more power and more influence, there began to be more issues. So let's look at some of those that happened, and we'll look at those in class. So the plebeians are growing frustrated because they don't have much power in their government. And that is a problem. It's just not cool, dude. They don't have any power. They don't get to make any laws. They don't get to have a say in what the laws should be or what the punishments are for those laws. So they're not happy with that at all. And in 494 BC, the plebeians actually go on strike. And they leave the city of Rome and they go out and they create their own city. That left the patricians in a lot of hurt. They didn't have people to work jobs that had been worked before. They didn't have people that were artisans, bakers, and part of the whole society just left. It would be like if everybody who worked at a restaurant decided that they weren't going to do that anymore, and they all leave and they go outside, and now all of us who like to go out to eat, there's nowhere for us to eat. And so that was a problem for them. So the patricians were sad that they all left, and the plebeians went on strike and said, you can just figure that out by yourself. The patricians did agree to share power so the republic wouldn't collapse. Everybody loves Rome. Rome is an idea that nobody should be above the others, and so they're working that out and how that should be. And so they did come back into the city, and they came to work it out so that the republic would not collapse. And then there was the patricians agreed to allow a council of plebeians and to establish a council of plebeians, and the office of tribune is created to give more power to the plebeians. So that's right. Here's our little guy. They're giving some more power to the people. And so the patricians had to give up some of their power and had to find a way to include the plebeians in their government. Now, we are going to talk about all that in class. There's lots of little nuances about how long people could serve and all these different things, but this is an important part of our government moving forward so that everybody is represented and everybody has a shot at sharing that power. Around 287 BC, the Council of Plebes finally gets a chance to pass laws for other citizens. And that's a big deal because now everybody is represented within the government and everybody has a voice. Everybody gets to say what they think should happen in government in passing the laws and also in the punishments. So we'll talk more about that in class. All right, finish all your hot questions appropriately. Make sure you've got good answers, and we'll see you in class. Keep calm and support equality, guys. Bye.